Good afternoon, welcome everybody. Welcome to Club ADCN. I'm Dinesh Shonak, Managing Director of ADCN, the Club for Creativity, and we're delighted to welcome you to these jury talks. On the agenda today is Next, and Next creativity to us is all about next generation creativity, where social impact, cultural impact, business impact, and of course the future of creativity, talent plays a key role. So today we'll review with some of the jury members their learnings, the feedback, the insights that they collected from the jury sessions for this year's Dutch Creativity Awards in categories like business, innovation, impact, and side projects. Next generation creativity is something that we believe we need today and not in the next generation. Plenty of challenges to work on, whether it's coronavirus, climate challenges, diversity in society. All of these big challenges need rethinking, reimagination, and again, that's what Next is all about. So today we'll discuss that with 4 speakers in total. So we hope you enjoy the next sort of 45 minutes. If you have any questions, please post them in the comments section on Facebook or Instagram. And let's get started with the first 2 jury members who were both members of the Impact Jury. We'd love to welcome Femke Bartles, Global Managing Director of THNK School of Creative Leadership, and Safi Graauw, Founder, Head of Creative at these Cavemen.
Yes.
Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Femke, we'd love to start with you and ask you to share a little bit about yourself and what THNK as an institute, as a school, actually does or aims to do.
I think in terms of my personal purpose, I've always wanted to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And so that's made me 2 different choices in life. Amongst others, I've been working in Greenpeace globally, but for 4 years now I'm heading up THNK, School for Creative Leadership. And we work with people from all sectors, from all sorts of different backgrounds, both to sort of enhance their leadership so they know how to navigate and maybe even enjoy the complexity and the changes that we're currently facing, as well as how do you design and lead for impact? How within this complex environment can you still really make a mark and do something good?
Excellent. So the impact obviously can become sort of a buzzword. I think more and more organizations are trying to define what impact really means to them. How do you look at impact in terms of the qualities, the criteria that you're looking for?
Yeah, so I think I can talk about this for weeks, but if I summarize it, I think there's 4 key ingredients that all need to be there for an impact campaign to actually work. So I can't say oh, I've got 3 of them, I'm covered. They really all need to be there. And I think the first one is about credibility. Yeah. It's what is the company doing? And campaigns can amplify what they're doing, they can diversify or widen what they're doing. But if the company in its core is not related to the kind of impact that they want to show in their campaigns, it's not credible, it's not going anywhere. And so for me, an example that I really liked this week was the Van Moof example that has causing a lot of trouble in France. And I think that's, for me, a really credible campaign, because it shows the negative impacts of fossil fuels and driving gasoline cars. Yeah. But as a bicycle company that also has electric bikes, I think they're really credible in that field. So I think that's a really good example. So that's the first one, credibility. Next one. So the next one is understanding of the problem. Because you can go oh, plastic is a problem, for instance. I think a lot of companies came to that conclusion. And then you can do all sorts of things like collecting plastic or running against plastic. But then it's really about, Einstein said, you have to spend 99% of your time understanding the problem before you come up with a solution. And I think with impact, that's really the case. So then you need to come how come there's so much plastic and how can we actually address it at the source? So that's for me the second thing. So really understanding the problem, that you design your campaign around it. And then the third thing is change is hard. And there's a lot of people who think that we have all these problems because people don't know about it. So a lot of campaigns are about awareness. But for instance, climate change. How long do you think we've known about climate change? Some people, oh yeah, 3 years. But that's already for about 100 years, and since 50 years, a lot of scientists have been busy with it. So awareness is not the problem, it's the fact that it's really hard to change, that there's a lot of vested interest why things are the way they are. So creating awareness in your campaign is, in my view, too easy if you want to have a real impact. What is going to change? So are you giving people possibilities to do something, to contribute? Because if we all are part of the change, something is really happening. And then the fourth point is about how creative and appealing is the campaign to actually take people along. Like, how do we place mind bombs that people, when they see campaigns, they go like, wow, I cannot unsee that. But about that, Safi's going to talk more.
Well, my name is Safi Graauw. I come from a different field. I come from the field of earth sciences, so I did an earth sciences master. And well, looking at all these campaigns, I believe Vang de Watermonsters, that's the first one we're going to be talking about. The most interesting thing about Vang de Watermonsters is that if you come from an earth sciences perspective, you probably understand that in the Netherlands there are many, many, many small little creeks that need to be measured. So if you want to talk about a campaign that has had actual impact, then you realize that now all these little creeks in the Netherlands have been measured by parents and children, and this data is usable. And if you can set up a campaign in such a 360 way that it actually adds something scientifically, it's fun to do, it looks good, then for me, you won.
Yeah.
That's where you need to go. This is how you should set up your campaign. So for me personally, I honestly get excited because I come from this earth sciences field. I am now in this communications field, and I see a combination of these two things.
And for those people who do not have your background in terms of a completely different discipline as a start,
Yes.
And having, knowing so many people in the creative community, what would you recommend to people in terms of their development, what they could do to explore different areas, fields, and integrate that thinking into their work or their ideas? What do you do, or how do you keep?
In a way, I am fed by curiosity.
Yeah.
So I am a naturally curious person. And I think in a way, if you let your curiosity speak and if you let your curiosity flow, you could find two completely different things, but then you can see where they overlap. And I think when we're talking about creativity, that's where interesting things happen. Two fields that have completely nothing to do with each other, but in a way you make sure that they do. I think that's where it gets interesting for me.
Yeah.
Uncharted territory.
Uncharted territory. And a lot of people are afraid of combining things that they shouldn't. But I think if everybody would do as the previous person did, then we wouldn't have any new things, and we wouldn't have this idea of, we wouldn't have creativity.
Yeah. Combinatory plays, I think what Einstein or Schumpeter called it too.
Yeah.
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 All right, thanks. Then the next project is Victim Fashion.
Yes.
Can you maybe tell a little bit about the project? So how?
Victim
what was the
Fashion.
problem?
The problem was, and you need to help me with this one, but the problem was that you wanted to increase the awareness of the effects of accidents by train.
Yeah.
People accidentally getting in front of the train. What I think was interesting about this campaign was that you use this tactic of shock and awe, and getting this idea through the bureaucracy of a company and then getting it
like
made,
Poel, yeah.
you need to have a lot of guts. And the idea in itself is already impactful because it works on an emotional level. But for me, getting that through the bureaucracy of a company or a brand, such an extreme idea.
Yeah. It's an achievement in itself.
It's an achievement in itself. Yeah.
And you cannot unsee it.
Yeah.
And it is, like, it makes me sick in my stomach if you hear the stories around it. But then sitting in a train, and I always travel by train, like sitting in a train and seeing these accidents really happening, that's the real problem. So it's quite a severe campaign, but it also really helps making people aware of a real problem.
And then the thing that we missed on this campaign was there's family of victims. There's people around these victims, because these shirts are actual victims, that re-experience the whole losing of somebody close to you. So what we missed in this campaign is also maybe showing more of a healing side. So what you could do, for example, is not make the shirt the way it is with all the cracks and creaks of a broken body, but actually heal it and make it a whole person again. So then the campaign doesn't just focus on somebody dying, but it also focuses on preventing other people from getting into an accident.
Do you feel that looking at all the work in the impact category that you've seen, that in general often only parts or elements of a specific problem were attended to, and that there was a missed opportunity to more holistically look at all the facets of this problem and identify solutions for each of them? So to go again a step further, not in sort of designing a campaign, but actually offering a total solution?
Yeah, I think me and Femke, we probably come from the same perspective of looking at a problem holistically. And I think if you really want to understand a problem, you have to understand everything besides the problem as well, and that's that holistic view. And I think you and I could agree that every campaign should completely understand the whole spectrum of the problem and not just the problem itself.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily therefore have to cover all aspects, but at least to understand it. You can say, I'm only focusing on this, but what's going to happen next year? What's going to happen the year after?
It into consideration.
Yeah, if it's just a campaign that just makes people aware, and then if they don't see the campaign, nothing is happening in anybody's life, that's not good enough. And I think we were all really passionate about this category, and we think it's really important for the sector to do more in this. And we also really think that there can be so much more still here. So it's really, we really want to invite people to take this really serious as part of the, not just the responsibility of the sector, but also the opportunities what you can create in a creative way.
Completely agree.
Thanks. Then Smorf Verliefd, the final project that you awarded with a lamp in this category. So again, how, as a jury, how did you review the problem, the idea, the relevancy of the idea, and its impact?
So Smorf Verliefd, let's not say the problem, but the hurdle was to make people of a teenage age more aware of apping or doing things while biking.
The risks of
it. And what I think personally is interesting about this campaign is that you use the medium that these kids are looking at and you use it to tell them a story. And I think we've seen, for example, the previous campaign was doing that with fashion. But these types of media, popular media, are good carriers of a message. And I think in that way, you've thought a bit different. Let's try and entertain these people and then shock them in a way. And I think that's for me, that was the most interesting part about this Smorf Verliefd campaign. And also, the brand is secondary. So it's first a piece of entertainment, and then it's a piece of shock and awe, and then you get the brand. So for me, this piece feels more of a real message. The message is more serious and it's more real, because the brand behind it just stays on the sideline and really wants to fix this problem.
I think like if you look at all three of the campaigns that we awarded, like I think the credibility element of like Interpolis, ProRail and ASN, I think that was really strong in all the campaigns. But then if you look at the other elements, it varies a bit more. But like, I think they're all really credible carriers of this message, and therefore also for me, it gives confidence that it's not a one-off, but it's something that they keep building on in the future.
And what would you recommend to a company like Interpolis and the We Film, the team around it? So what in discussing this project as a jury, did you have any thoughts on what could be next or should be next, or what was still lacking or missing a bit?
For me, I'm from the generation that really actually also watches a lot of videos online. We look at rappers or singers or whatever. And in a way, most of those songs feel like, sometimes can feel like a one-off.
Yeah.
But you want this to be a never-ending story. So you want to find ways to actually keep this song going and keep that story going. And I think that's what I would recommend. I wouldn't set it up as, okay, this is a one-time collaboration with Snelle.
No.
But I would set it up as maybe a yearly campaign, because if you look at the way campaigns work, they're very short, quick, and that's it. But the problems, and these are social problems, they're very lengthy. So you're not going to be able to solve a lengthy problem with a very short-term project. So my advice would be try to look at it from a more holistic perspective and understand that social change takes years instead of 2 or 3 or 4 or 20 flights.
Yeah.
Maybe adding to that, that's also like in terms of what we saw with the entries is how do you qualify success? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the success measures were so many people seen this, and that's, I think, very valid for an advertisement campaign. Mm-hmm. But if you're true about impact, it's also, and what did it do? And so if you're in it for the long haul, then you can also look for yourself as a company, like what do we want to achieve in this field and what does that look like? For instance, I'm really interested with ProRail, if this campaign actually not just created shock and awe, but if this actually leads to less victims around railroads
over the years.
And then if it does that, then it's a really good impact campaign, and that will really help solve the problems instead of just like spotlighting it in a very short
and that's also what I think, is that this impact category wants to be a driver of change, but change only becomes measurable. Social change only becomes measurable in the long term. ASN, Vang de Watermonsters, that's quickly measurable because now you have data of all these little creeks in the Netherlands. But I think this is going to be the most important category because this is the way the industry is moving. And I would say to anybody that wants to have impact is that you need to understand the social dilemma that you're showing. You need to understand it in the long run.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your feedback to this body of work, and we'll together with entrants, jurors, we'll continue to make an effort to see how we can go from, let's say, campaign impact more to real innovation, social innovation, and true solutions, and make people drive to get there. And it's a nice little bridge to our next speaker, who is also a jury member and who's on a daily basis trying to solve things and envision new futures where all of these problems are being solved. So thanks again, Femke and Safi, for joining us.
It was a real pleasure.
Yes.
Great. And love to welcome Bas to the table. Hey, Bas. It's Bas van der Poel, here, creative director of Space 10 in Copenhagen, but you must be here now a lot in Amsterdam. So first of all, we'd love to hear a little bit about what Space 10 actually is and does.
Yeah, so Space 10 is a research and design lab, and we are on a mission to create a better and more sustainable ways of living for both people and planet.
Yeah.
And we are proudly supported by IKEA in the sense that we help them fulfill their long-term vision. And basically we research and design solutions for the major societal changes we're about to face or already facing today.
Such as?
Well, the climate crisis is a big one.
Yeah.
Rapid urbanization.
Yeah.
The exponential growth of technology and its impact. So these are some of the domains we're looking into.
And why and how does IKEA invest into a lab like this? You would assume any big company or organization has a sort of a research, design, innovation lab. But how and why in particular, what do they want to get out of this?
Well, I mean, I think IKEA is a quite unique company. It's a non-public company. They're Swedish, so if they have the right sort of like social values in place.
Yeah.
And their mission or their vision is create a better everyday life for the many, which is a quite grand vision to strive for. So basically, we are helping them to serve almost like as an interface for innovation, really helping them to connect to different people, creative entities that operate on a smaller scale, but can have a very large impact. And that's why they're working with us, basically.
Yeah. So you were a member of the business and innovation jury, which essentially look at creative ideas that either embody data, technologies, sort of future technologies to design and create a solution that have impact at not just a brand communication level, but more at a business or even societal level. In your personal background, I think you started your career in the heart of the creative industries, in all kinds of creative agencies and studios. If you look back at your work then and your work and this type of work, what is the difference in terms of the skill sets or the mindsets that you need in order to make real innovation impact?
I think you need to go beyond sort of like a little bubble you're in. I mean, we just discussed here as well, like sort of like combining different fields. And I think that's also something we actively do at Space 10. So we really look, into architecture, into digital design, into engineering, into research around the impact of autonomous vehicles, around solar. So it's really just like broadening your scope and not being stuck in your own little bubble, because that's not going to fly in today's realities, I think.
And how literally do you explore these other fields? So how do you spend your time, or what do you do to understand them or to connect to them?
Yeah, so I mean, we have this saying at Space 10: if you're like the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And what we mean by that is that, or how we act upon that, is that we sort of like invite people who are actually smarter than us, and we do this through residencies, for instance. So like we have a residency program with MIT, Strelka Institute, the Speculative Architecture Institute from Moscow, and as well Harvard GSD. And basically we bring sort of like talent with like an outside-in perspective into Space 10 to work on autonomous projects and basically challenge our convictions and perceptions on how to work, basically. So that's one of the things. Another example could be, like the different pop-ups or satellite offices we run. So like recently we opened up a satellite office in Delhi. We also opened one during London Design Week in London, New York as well, Shanghai. So basically going through to different places and interact with the local creative community there and see things from their perspective.
Yeah. And what earlier on we spoke about personal obsessions as a driver for innovation. Yeah. Maybe rather than, let's say, just identifying a problem and trying to solve that problem. You also just shared about sort of autonomous projects, research, actually shaping the agenda of Space 10. So what I'd love to explore is how do these personal obsessions, for example, for you, lead to innovations that in the end are relevant for IKEA or for the problems that they. Yeah,
for sure. Value. One example is basically like I've personally been obsessing also together with some of my co-workers at Space 10 around the impact of autonomous vehicles. And this is a project we did called Space on Wheels, and it basically looks into like when you reach a level 4 or 5 of autonomy, meaning like that cars can completely or platforms can completely drive themselves. You can basically build anything on top. And create sort of like this autonomous architecture, and that will have a huge influence, an impact on like the way we design cities, the way we move around across cities, and also like the different services we can provide as such. So that's that's a very clear obsession that led to a concrete project. Another one is a more recent one. Our co-founder Kove has been obsessing about bees. And more specifically solitary bees, because they're on the verge of being extinct.
Extinction, yeah.
And what we also obsessed about is parametric design, computational design. And basically we combined these two, and that led to a project we did together with a residency called Tanita Klein and a studio called Bakken & Beck. Which is Bee Home, a parametrically designed bee home. So like if you go to beehome.design, you can basically design your own perfect bee home, and then sort of like take those software files and print them at your local makerspace. So it's really like a decentralized, distributed way of digital production, basically.
And
sorry for the rant.
No.
That was a lot.
Happy to learn. So, looking at the sort of the type of work that comes out of this industry, and with the industry I mean sort of the creative community, the world of brands.
Yeah.
What, where do you think we're making great progress, and what is still needed in order to, get to true levels of innovation and impact? So, what should be the agenda? In terms of our development?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to see that, like brands are more and more, having a voice in terms of, like social unrest, for instance. So like, I love that, brands like Adidas, Unilever, recently, sort of like got all their advertising budgets for Facebook, because Facebook is actively enabling hate on their platform to maximize their profits. I think these kind of initiatives, give me real hope, and also, I think we will see that more and more in the future.
And personally, how do you keep refreshing yourself, or where do you find new sources of inspiration? What do you do? Well,
right now I'm really obsessing about architecture. So like currently I'm also, due to the whole COVID-19 situation, I started an online course at Harvard GSD called the Architectural Imagination. Mm-hmm. So that's something I'm actively looking into. And I'm also hugely fascinated by spatial computing. I mean, this is actually a project we did recently called Everyday Experiments, that basically looks into the influence of technology on our home. And for that we invited different studios across the world. This one is done by a studio called Field in London, and invited them, to do different digital experiments. So this one is, measuring your room using an elephant, for instance, and sort of like a LiDAR technology, which can be found in the iPad Pro. Also another example, if we can skip one, this one is by Bakken & Beck, that basically transforms your everyday furniture into a smart application. So this lamp suddenly is able to measure sort of like the air quality and communicate the air quality as such. If you can go to the next one. This one is done by Man vs. Machine, London-based and LA-based studio, which basically is more like a speculative AR experiment around what if you could basically create different lighting settings matched with like geographical location, weather, time, and season to see how the lighting influences your home.
Well, thank you so much. What our aim actually for this talk was to understand a little bit how you work and how you keep on exploring new ways to innovate within the context of Space10, but also your personal projects. And I think building also on Femke's and Safi's recommendations is that if we bring in outsider perspectives, skills, points of views, experiences that maybe even not even remotely have to do with the core of your problem or of your topic or theme, and build on the passion and sort of the entrepreneurship of those people, that you can come to radically new ways of looking at things and finding solutions for these problems.
I mean, you're doing it yourself as well, right, with ADCN. I think it's really, you know, like I think that's really fresh actually, that you guys are able to bring, you know, like people from very radical different discourses. I think that really, brings a lot of value to what you're doing. So.
Well, thanks for that. All right. Well, thanks again, Bas, for being on this year's jury and for sharing some of your personal reflections on how to grow. Yeah. And we hope to see you soon back at the club again.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Cheers.
All right. Our final speaker, since Emilio de Haan unfortunately has been able to make it to this session, is Charlene Austin. Welcome, Charlene. We're really happy that you're here. Charlene is the Marketing and Communications Manager at Soho in Amsterdam, and she was one of the members of the side project category. And at the club we actually started the side project category because next to all of the commissioned, commercial, applied creative work that we all make, clients and all the agency partners, creative partners around it, we strongly believe that the inspiration, the entrepreneurship, the passion of creative minds to explore things outside their work helps them in coming to better ideas. And more importantly, we also want to give a platform to some of these projects and share that inspiration. So thanks again for being on the jury.
Thanks for having me.
Couple of questions to start with, maybe about personal passions outside of work. What do you do next to your sort of daily work at Soho House?
Yeah, so I am specialized, or I'm really passionate about storytelling.
Yeah.
I love telling stories about creative projects or products that I love. It really comes naturally to me just talking about it. So I have a background in the arts. I come from an arts and culture background, and I've been doing different art projects in the past. And as a result of that, I'm now like specialized again in brand communication, also cultural marketing, and that's really about talking about culture and talking about the arts. I get my inspiration, from the art world, museums, galleries, but lately for the last year I've also been very much researching like art directors, and then art directors that have that combination of art, artistic view, and also telling stories. So Arthur Jaffa is one of them. I like Hal Weeks is one of them, but also Tyler Mitchell, it's also one of them. So those are the ones that I'm getting more and more into. So that is one of my passions.
Yeah, thanks. What do you take away? Can you give an example of a takeaway from those observations? Or
of course.
Working with them?
So I haven't worked with them. It's just that, I come across their work. So for instance, Arthur Jaffa is one. He just released like one of his movies. Which was which you could see worldwide. I think it was broadcasted by 8 museums worldwide. And the way he just tells his stories. He's worked with Beyonce, but also did like this very amazing campaign with Kenzo. So it's really inspirational to see like how he has his his artistic view and shares that in something that's tangible, but also understandable to a bigger audience. So I really like that, and I get like how to tell a story. I get just my inspiration from that.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So let's have a look at this year's side project category. All of the entries. What we do is we actually welcome a wide range of projects to be submitted, whether it's poetry or a music project or a product design or a social cause. It could literally be anything. As a jury, what have you been looking for in those projects across all these different sort of ventures?
Yeah. So there were a few things that we found important. One is relevance. What does it say and what does it say about the current time? Two was inspiration, but also is it smart? Is it new? Is it refreshing? Does it do something with you? And then I would say it was also about, does it tell a bigger story? And is it layered enough? Does it take you in like in a deep thought, or does it bring you somewhere else where you didn't know that you could think of, or it surprises you? Yeah. So those were the main things that we looked at as a group.
All right.
Yeah.
So we'd love to get some of your feedback on behalf of the jury to 4 projects, 3 projects that were entered and nominated or that won a lamp. Yeah. And one is a project that you brought yourself. So let's start with the first. The project is called Odd Publications.
Yes.
It was created by Jaap Smit. Can you tell us a little bit about the project and what you loved about it? Yeah.
So this is one of the projects that we nominated. So it's basically about, what he did is he took metadata from our behavior online. So either Twitter or Instagram or anything social or on the internet. And he basically brought that all together in a book. And what I found interesting, or what touched me, is like I've always had a diary when I was younger. And that's always something that you pencil down. But now that we're so on our phones or on, on the screens, always in the virtual world, you don't have a grasp, or you don't really, you wouldn't understand directly that all the messaging that you're leaving behind is also kind of a trail and a story that you're leaving behind. Yeah. And what I found really good about this one is that it just basically metadata in a book. That's something very tangible. Yeah. So I thought that it had so many layers and so many, I just went crazy about it immediately. So that's what I found really nice about this one.
Great.
Yeah. So that's one of the ones that we nominated altogether.
Yeah. Second one was the Pregnancy Cookbook.
Yes.
It's created by Pascal Rotteveel. So what is this idea about?
Yeah. So what we found very smart and very crafty about it is that something that is worldwide known for centuries, like when women get pregnant, they have this craving for crazy combinations. Yeah. And this book is like a beautiful example of photography, but also of these crazy combinations. So what you see here is bacon and chocolate. I even think that's possible, but I don't know. But then there was also a picture of herring with something sweet. So what they've done in this book is, something very smart, something that's we all know and long-standing, but they made it, very crafty and brought it to this time, also through the photography that they have. Our opinions about this one were very split, because one side was like, this is so good and I would buy it, blah, blah, blah. And then the other side was like, okay, but how is it bringing us further, kind of thing. So it was kind of a discussion that came back and forth. But we did agree that it deserved the nomination, because it's very current and very millennial, I would say. Yeah. So for that one, it deserved the nomination from us. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
The third project that we'll discuss is Casting My Father.
Yes. So this one won a prize. So Casting My Father, and correct me if I'm wrong, but she was raised in an orphanage and she never knew her father. And as she was growing, she got this urge and this feeling that she wanted to know more about him. He is still alive, I think, but instead of just getting to know him personally, she had all these conversations with people who have experienced him or lived around him, from brothers to uncles to friends, and they all told her a bit about his personality. So what she did is and it was also a very beautiful process for her to go through it, and because it's quite heavy, not knowing your parents or knowing your dad. So what she did is that she made this whole project where she interviewed different people to play the role her father had following those identities. So for instance, if a friend said like, oh, your dad was from the age of 10 to 20, he had these and these, you know, aspects or these personalities, she would cast someone to play that figure. And it was for her to get to know him through his lifetime. And this, I think it was also even a play during, like in a gallery. And it was so, in my case again, was so layered, and it had a bigger story, but it was also, it showed how she's dealing with these feelings and experiences, which I really loved. So for us as a jury, she got a prize for it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Finally, you have brought one project to the table that you love at a personal level.
Yeah.
Sunday school.
Sunday school.
Tell us about it. What is
No
it?
talking.
And why do you like it?
Yeah, so it was yesterday. So I was just going through, you know, just all materials of what is a side project.
Yeah.
And we call it passion project because it's a project that you do filling a void or filling, you know, something that you want to, you know, express basically. So we call it passion project. And yesterday I heard this or read this article about a bill being, or a law being passed about young children or people no longer being discriminated about for their hair. Because the story that you hear is that people have to straighten their hair, or especially young kids have to straighten their hair from Afro backgrounds because it wasn't allowed in the schools that they were to. So this law no longer allowed that. So it made me think, memorize about this project. So Sunday School is a collective, I believe in Toronto, Canada, and they saw that braiding your hair, like when I was younger, I always braid my hair, my mom always did stuff, and braiding your hair is no longer really something people talk about or is really part of the culture, whilst it's so important because our hair is our crown.
Yeah.
So how he showed it is that he made this whole, you know, visual series about women having braided hair or being at the salon doing their hair and stuff. And then when he finished that, it became a full circle like exhibition, like traveling exhibition, and the whole talk was around it. So it's so full-on experience kind of, and I really like that as an example of a side project or a passion project that someone does just to fill a void or something that they see is like neglected or should, you know, get attention. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to show this one. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but this is like Sunday School, and if you go further down, yeah, so that's the whole explanation about it. Yeah, so they even made a video. We don't have to show that. But the pictures are so amazing and so beautifully done, and it's aesthetic, it's of this time, it's so relevant still. And I think it's even a project from 2017 or something like that. But yeah, it just reminded me of a passion project that I wanted to show.
What the passion can do, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Charlene, for being here on behalf of the jury and sharing your reflections. This was the final edition of a series of jury talks that we've been doing all week to give back feedback to entrants, to the brands, the creative companies who've participated in this year's Dutch Creativity Awards. We encourage you to ask for more feedback if you like. We'll try to connect you with the juries and make sure that you get appropriate feedback whenever possible. We also encourage you to have a look at all the nominated and winning work in our digital gallery at adcn.nl/awards. That's where you can find all the nominated work across all categories. And again, we hope that you look for work outside your own discipline or the stuff that you've been working for to discover something new and to learn something new. Finally, I would like to thank the team here, Menno, our director, Eva, Soraya, Sterre, Charlotte for making these series happen, and we'll be back during and after the summer with our programs, the Dutch Creativity Festival, and much more to come to work on Dutch creativity. Thank you so much, and see you soon at Club ADCN.